It's time for Recipe of the Day. It is the Sunday of the Canadian Thanksgiving long weekend, and it is on the Sunday that my family would traditionally have their dinner. I live in Florida now and am not with my larger extended family, but I still do a little dinner, and so I have a turkey breast brining as we speak, and I'm going to tell you about a little Hashbrown casserole that I'm planning to have as one of the casseroles at our dinner. Now, I really love this Hashbrown casserole recipe because it is made fully from scratch using like normal fresh potatoes, not frozen shredded hash browns, and it doesn't use canned soup. And because of that, all of the ingredients are things that I just always have. So if I want to make a breakfast special, or if I need a side dish that I want to have some oomph, or if I'm going to take something to a potluck and I hadn't planned it and I'm going to think of something last minute, this recipe is perfect. You'll start by preheating the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit and lightly greasing a 9 by 13 inch baking dish. Then you shred your potatoes. It's 2.5 pounds of baking potatoes. That's going to be about 6 medium potatoes. And once you're shredding them and you have them in like a measuring cup, if you're going to measure them, it's about 6 cups. I will say that you can use the frozen shredded hash browns if you want to in this. I have tested it. Just keep them frozen until they're added to the recipe. So you don't do any of this part. You just wait and add them in frozen and they work beautifully. Okay, so you have your 6-ish medium potatoes. Give them a good rinse so that when you shred them, they're not getting like the dirt into the mixture, right? So rinse them off, and then you're going to use a box grater, and you're using the side that you would use to like shred cheese for tacos or something, right? So not the tiny little grater holes, not the big slicing holes, but those like normal cheese shredding holes, right? So you're going to shred those on there. I find it easiest to just put the grater right on a plate and shred onto the plate, and then as the grater sort of fills up, slide those potatoes into a bowl or into the measuring cup. Once all of your potatoes are shredded, you want to put them into a big bowl and fill it with cold tap water, swish them around, drain it in a big colander, and then put them back into the bowl with more cold water and set it aside for a minute. So we're just removing any of that dirt or grit and also swishing off some of the extra starch. Then you're going to get out a nice big skillet. You could also use like a big saucepan. That's going to work. It's going to have to fit all of those potatoes. So keep that in mind before you start. They're not baking in there, but they are going to heat through in there. So get out that big skillet or pot and heat some butter over medium heat. It's a 1/4 cup of unsalted butter. If you use salted butter, that's fine. You just won't want to add as much salt later. To that butter, you are adding 2 medium onions that are chopped up, and you're cooking them until they're softened, stirring occasionally for 3 to 4 minutes. Then add in a 1/4 cup of flour, and you're just sprinkling that over the onions and then stirring it. The onions are going to help it distribute through the butter so that it doesn't clump up. Cook it for about a minute while you're stirring it. Then you're going to add in some milk, 1.5 cups of milk. Of course, whole milk is going to make it taste like richer and creamier, whereas fat-free milk is going to taste a little bit weaker, but there's lots of cheese and other stuff going on in here, so it's not going to matter that much. So it's 1.5 cups of milk that you're adding, and you're also going to add a teaspoon of salt and 3/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper. And then you're just stirring that over medium heat until it's heated through, bubbling, and thickened. It's just going to take like 2 or 3 minutes. Then take that off the heat. At this point, you can drain those potatoes for the last time. So drain them through that same colander again and maybe press on them a little bit, shake it all around to try and remove any excess water. You don't need to pat them dry or anything like that, but just try to get rid of some excess water. All that's going to do is dilute the flavors in the sauce, right? Then you add the potatoes to the sauce in the skillet. So you're adding the potatoes to that skillet. Before you stir, sprinkle them all over with another teaspoon of salt. So the potatoes did not get seasoned before. Now they're getting seasoned. And then stir them to moisten them really well in that sauce. I find it actually easiest to use some tongs. If I'm using a non-stick skillet for this, then they're going to be like silicone tipped tongs, and just sort of move everything around to stir it. Then return that skillet to the heat, medium heat, and you're going to cook until it's steaming and bubbling. So we're essentially getting a head start on cooking those potatoes, because once they go into the baking dish in the oven, it's hard for the circulating heat to really penetrate and cook the potatoes and get it going. Here we're starting it first so they're hot when they go into the oven, and that's going to make it much easier for them to soften up and cook properly. So once that potato and sauce mixture is bubbling and steaming, you're going to stir in 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese, and then you transfer the whole thing to that prepared baking dish that you lightly greased. It was a 9x13. Smooth the top out a bit, but don't pack it in. Just scoop it in and kind of smooth it a bit. Packing it down is going to make it denser, which makes it harder for the heat to penetrate. And I'm making this point about heating things and the heat penetrating because we are using the fresh shredded potatoes, which have not been cooked at all. So we do have to make sure that they cook through properly. If we were using those hash browns, they are already they've been frozen. They're just softened a little bit already. So that's why that's easier with those. We're just doing those extra little things to make sure that they cook through properly here. Cover the baking dish with foil and then you bake until it's bubbling in the middle. The edges are nice and crispy brown and the potatoes in the middle are tender. You even might want to taste some because then you know for sure that they're cooked right in the middle, right? Just be careful, they're hot. It's going to take about 40 minutes for it to get to that point. Then take it out of the oven, take the foil off, sprinkle the whole thing with another 1.5 cups of cheese. This is a very cheesy hash brown casserole. Put that back into the oven and bake just until the cheese is melted and starting to brown. It's about 15 minutes. Sprinkle that with green onions for a nice garnish and a little flavor and dig in. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there, or find it in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/recipeotd. And hey, just a quick note. I'm on a recording hiatus right now, so for the next little while, I'm replaying episodes from the archives, including this one. If you heard me mention a holiday, a season, or something going on in my life that seemed a bit off, that's why. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're enjoying these older episodes. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, cookfor2.us, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.